through when I heard that the Finance Committee for the last 2 years had rarely met, and there was zero direction for that important position on the board. I served as Secretary Treasurer for a year, and it was the most valuable experience I could have at SPJ. It made me learn quickly and thoroughly that the society's finances, and I held 4 Finance Committee meetings leading up to the spring board meeting. I did that because I wanted the committee and myself to be confident that we knew our budget inside and out. Someday, if I were going to be president, I wanted to know how the finances of SPJ operated. So I could talk to any single member at any event, at any time, and give them a thorough and educated explanation as how SPJ's finances work. The idea that we 2 years as an organization without regular finance committee meetings was shocking and was worrisome. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. We lost a valuable employee and an accountant, and we lost an executive director, and we lost some key staff members at headquarters. After being elected to the board, I quickly learned that proper bookkeeping, we were flying pretty blind with our budget. Expenses and incomes were lagging behind for 9 months. Keep in mind that SPJ's membership dues are the primary source of income. You don't bill dues for 9 months. Financial difficulties, for sure. No revenue, no bills were being paid. I learned the board $500,000 that the SPJ board had received for selling the national headquarters. They sold the building for $1 million and they split the proceeds half and half. And SPJ board. Our $500,000 was to be put into an interest-bearing account for future use, not to be touched, not to be spent. Because of the financial crisis, because we were not billing individuals for their dues, because we were not paying bills, we had to have a source of revenue. And so the executive director made the decision to tap into that money to make payroll and to pay rotating bills that are common, like lights and so forth. They spent the entire $500,000 down. That amount of money is gone. So we didn't have a cushion to fall back. That was a desperate act in desperate times, and I'm not laying blame there. You had to have revenue from somewhere, and you had to make payroll obligations. And going to the board, I knew that we were looking at a deficit, probably a fairly large one. But the news was even worse. Some questionable decisions by the last executive director, a board that without a treasurer per se, for the last 2 years, didn't have what it takes to forecast what was going to happen. And then there was also some questionable expenditures from the last administration, and all of this combined to lead us into this perfect fiscal storm. Now, most of you know that 2 weeks ago we had a board meeting, and much of this bad news spilled out in detail. Then there was a Finance Committee meeting a couple of days ago, and there's good news. It's not great news, but it's better than what we anticipated. So, having told you all of the misery and the bad things that have taken place with regards to the finances, let me offer some positive news. Okay? Thanks to some tremendous work and cooperation between SPJ and the Foundation, we are going to salvage this upcoming 2023 budget. We're going to make some serious slashes in spending. ED has presented a budget that is going to have a slight deficit, not $300,000 deficit that we thought would. We're not hiring any new people for the next year. We've called off the executive director search. And sadly, and I know this hurts a lot of chapters, we're looking at scrapping the new database. Chapter grants are going to go away for next year, and we're looking at cutting other expenses. The only way we can balance the budget at this point. have to make some tough decisions when we meet in 2 weeks. But I think the die is cast, and I think what I'm telling you is going to come to pass. People are going to be upset, and that's understandable to a point. We will overcome this crisis. It won't happen overnight or next month or even happen before the convention. The budget was big enough that it's going to take a couple of years for us to get this ship right. I'm up for this. My sleeves are rolled up for the next year and the next year of my term. I will be behind a balanced budget again, and I hope that we can move forward and be prepared for a better future. So, having said all of that, I want to touch on a new aspect in this talk. SPJ for 45 years now, and it shows. It shows on me, and it shows on sometimes the way I think. I entered SPJ. In 45 years, I can tell you with great certainty that this is not a perfect organization. It is not run with perfect leaders, and we do not have perfect membership. We are journalists, and with that comes a natural inclination to question and to challenge, even to be combative. Most of that it's aimed at leadership, and I understand. A contrarian nature that we have with us has long been a hallmark of SPJ. When I was chairman of the Ethics Committee in 94 through 96, and we had an ethics code revision, I can tell you that it was a contentious time. And then in 2014, we also had a contentious time revising the ethics code. If you thought that the one debate last year at the convention was rigorous, you have not lived through 4 debates in the 80s and the 1990s. So what exactly are you trying to say, Kevin? There's a lot of anger and harsh words that are being exchanged over this fiscal issue, and that's your right. You should challenge it. You can be mad. I get it. I don't blame you for being mad. But we're past the blame game now, and we're at the point where we have to have solutions. I'll be the first to tell you that I've had to tell myself this on a number of occasions. This fiscal situation has made me mad. While I try to project calm and logical demeanor in public, my wife will tell you that I have said some things about this situation that has had her tell me that I need to be in church on Sunday, right? It has been frustrating. And we haven't seen this level of fiscal concern since the early 1980s. And I was just on the sideline at that time. But you want to know something? We got through it. The people who were leaders then made the right decisions. They were controversial maybe, and they weren't upset. But we got through this, and we became a better, stronger organization because we went through some difficult times. We need to focus on solutions right now and stop looking for monsters in the closet. I'm done being frustrated by this. I have taken the approach that I need to focus my energy on being positive and coming up with progressive solutions. When I decided to join the board again, people told me that I was crazy, and I admitted that was probably true. But when I found myself sitting on the sideline complaining about things that was happening in SPJ that I didn't particularly like, I actually reached out to a friend of mine and was encouraging him to run for the national board. And we were having conversations back and forth, and he said to me, "Why don't you run for the national board?" And I realized that if I was going to, I'd been president, and if I was going to be critical of this organization, to either stop being critical or to step up and try to do something. There are a lot of people in SPJ who complain. I get it. I hear them constantly. And it's not to say I'm not dismissing their complaints. They have a right to. We need more people that are going to get their hands dirty. I chose to get my hands dirty after being away from the board for 12 years. This is what I want you to do. I want you to think positively. I want you to think progressively. I want you to think innovatively and energetically. I want you to think about how you can get your hands dirty in the next coming year to help progress SPJ at the chapter level, at the regional level, whatever it takes to help us get through this. Now, chapter grants are going to go away. I know that $500 can go a long way and mean a lot. The question is, how can we do that? How can we get by without that? Are there innovative and different ways that we can create spring conferences and support chapters that pumping the money that we have in the past? I know that the database is a huge argument. There is an SPJ Gaggle feed, and it is polluted every day with people complaining about the database. And I understand they're upset that we may not get a new database. Complaining is only going to get us so far. We need to have solutions. We need to be thinking of ways that we can get this database. Is there something that we can do at the chapter level that we can bypass the database? For instance, what if we were to collect our members, collect their data, and store it at the chapter level until we can have a database that we can upload that to that's critical and informative and is correct? Okay? The thing I know about SPJ is that as much as we can complain about things, we can also find solutions. This organization is 115 years old. It didn't get by shrinking and giving up when times got bad. This is one of those bad times. It's going to take all of us from every chapter, from student chapters to professional, all the way up to the national board, to turn this thing around. And I'm confident that we can do this. I'm very confident that we can do this. And if there's any suggestions that you have, anything you want to share at any time, you can always reach out to me or any of the other board members. But since I'm talking to you, you're welcome to reach out to me. I am an at-large, which means every single person in this organization pays a due to respond to. You're my responsibility, or who I represent, and I take that very seriously. It's one of the reasons why I asked Dawn if I could give a talk to you. I would be there if I could. I would pay to come. Corresponding regional conference here in Chicago. Lastly, I want to leave you with some information and something of an announcement that I've been running for the past few months. So you're going to hear it here the same day that they heard of Region 4. So I've been quietly soliciting advice and comments from chapter leaders for the last 3 or 4 months about an initiative that I think is now due. I'm creating a working group that will explore expanding the size of the board at the national level and create something that's more responsible, more functional, and certainly more representative of our membership. I've spoken to trusted friends in SPJ over the last few months, and there's a near consensus that the current size of the board isn't fulfilling on the promises that we would. In fact, in some respects, it's creating more issues than we imagined. Now, it's going to be 11 people, or 13, or 15, and it remains the same. This work is my check the bylaws, and this city or task that is going to improve. As an at-large member, I represent all of you, every single dues-paying member, and it's within my rights as a leader to create an initiative that I think will better SPJ and engage members in finding a solution. So this isn't going to happen by this year's convention because the time frame with the bylaws is too soon. And that's okay. That's okay, because this shouldn't be rushed. There will be a need for a lot of debate. I tell you that we've already identified in this 24 possible board scenarios as a result of marching board. I lived through a 23-member board. I presided over a 23-member board as president, and it was impractical and it was burdensome. I'm sure Don can confirm some of that. There was some get with on the board when you get that many. We should never go back to that size, but in my opinion, and in the opinion of people I've talked to, we should have never reduced it to 9 people, controlling 3 of the seats. So the coming year, as we talk, there is going to be disagreements. And we've already seen a lot of that. If any of you are on that Gaggle, SPJ Gaggle feed that Michael Kretsky has created, you'll see that there's already been a lot of talk about this. But again, I'd like to remind you that with my working group, and what we plan to do, or what we hope to do in the next year or so, is I would like a tone and demeanor that is less about blaming and more about solutions. But in the end, that's really how SPJ progresses. I know I've given you a lot of sad and news that you probably don't need it in Seattle, in your region. But I will tell you that one thing that through some of our greatest disappointments, we realize some of our greatest strengths. And I think we're just being challenged right now fiscally and in some respects of leadership, and it's important that we hear from you. It's important that we keep a positive approach. It's important that we look for solutions and stop worrying about who's to blame and get past that and start worrying about how we're going to make SPJ better, because I know we're going to. I know we're going to. It's going to take more than me. It's going to take more than the board. It's going to take all of you. So having said that, I'm happy to have been here, to talk to you, to offer my kind of state of the SPJ to you. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take those while I take a drink. If you don't have any questions, you can reach out to me. I am at SMITHK, the number 7 at ohio.edu. I work at Ohio University, and you're welcome to send me an email at any point. I'm happy to talk to you about membership, leadership, finances, chapter events, whatever it takes. And I very much appreciate Dawn agreeing to let me, interfere with your conference and take out, half an hour of your time to listen to me. So, if there are no questions, Dawn, thank you very much.
No problem. Just one quick question for you.
Sure.
Does the current financial situation have any effect on SPJ's advocacy for, free press, open government, and such?
I heard all of that in the last sentence.
Does the financial situation affect our work in advocacy as advocates?
I didn't hear the last 2 words. Affect our, and that's all.
Okay, is this going to affect our ability with, promoting open government, free press, and the like?
Thank you. Yeah. The audio is cutting out here. So I will tell you, I have the budget went to the finance committee on Thursday. They approved it. They did not share it. It was a Zoom conference. I was allowed to participate because I'm not a member of the committee. They did not share it with us. It's my understanding that, and the short answer is, I don't know all of the things that, I know the things that they mentioned they cut. There's no search for an executive director. There's not going to be excess of $100,000, I believe. Chapter grants were going away. Now, I will tell you that the foundation, there was a lot of negotiation between our board and the foundation over the last 3 months. At one point, when the budget was around a $300,000 deficit, there was talk that the foundation would float SPJ a $100,000 loan at 5% interest in order for them to meet their financial obligations. As the executive director began slashing things from the budget, that was not necessary. However, what the foundation did do is it picked up some of the expenses. So like there's a student leadership academy that did not get cut. SPJ Foundation now picked that up. Additionally, the decision was made to hire a grant writer. I think I mentioned to you that our membership dues are our leading source of income. It stands to reason that as the journalism profession has shrunk and people have lost their jobs, that journalism organizations lose membership. And we have lost membership. We're no longer 10,000 or 8,000 members. When I was president and I left in 2010, we had just a little over 8,000 members. We are roughly somewhere around 5,000, maybe more, a little more. We're never going to go back to 8,000. So that revenue continues to shrink as a result. We need to find new sources of revenue. And one of the decisions made by was to fund $30,000 to hire a part-time grant writer who will with writing grants that could bring in additional money to SPJ. Now, grants are on a limited basis, so that person obviously is going to be a year situation. But I could see, Don, if we cut money, funding to FOI activities and those types of things, I should say that the legal defense fund is not affected. That's its own separate account. So that money is earmarked and can't touch for anything other than that. As we go through, and if we do find ourselves cutting back FOI and First Amendment advocacy, there is the potential that we could get grants that would backfill that and support that so we could once again reinstate those. I encourage you to, I don't know the exact time of the meeting. The president has said it's likely going to be Saturday, April the 29th, when the board meets to discuss the budget. I would encourage all of you to pay attention to this. Find out the exact times. Typically, those things start at noon, but I'm not going to speak for the president. It's her prerogative to pick the meeting times. I would tune in and listen to the board hash out the budget. I have, just listening to the finance committee meeting and the finance committee asking questions out of ground, but I certainly have questions. Touch and go. I think we will probably operate at a deficit, but I think it's a manageable. I think that we're going to, I can promise you, we're going to run for a long time so that we do not come at the end of the fiscal year and find ourselves in a serious deficit that this board just approved spending. We've been through some careless spending the last few years, couple of years. And we need to get a handle on that. But I'm positive, again, I'm trying to leave on a positive note. This is a big organization with a lot of people and a lot of moving parts, and so it costs. We are down, I believe it's 4 positions at headquarters, so we're not going to hire those people back. It's my understanding, listening to that we are saving in excess of $230,000 from the budget because we're not going to fill these 4 positions, and that money includes salaries, health care benefits, and so forth. So essentially, by not hiring those individuals, that was a big help in in shoring up this budget so that we had something that was not deficit. Any other questions? Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I wish
Kevin,
I wish
I think we have a question.
have better news. Exciting and fun
Oh.
and
Kevin,
entertaining. But
we have a question.
Yes, this is my first conference. I'm a student journalist, and I'm just wondering, as a new member, what can I do to help SPJ in this difficult time?
Great question. That's a great question. And thank you for being a new member and making that offer. You know, I think that, the thing that chapters rely a lot on funding and revenue sources that trickle down from the national level down and help those chapters. Because that is in jeopardy, what I think would be the most prudent thing for someone like you and your colleagues is to ways that you can sustain your chapter needs through self-financing, right? And then there's a lot of different ways that you might do that. You may come up with every chapter has, fundraising activities. Think, for instance, what you think would be the most walking through this. If you contact national headquarters, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not asking you to reinvent the wheel. This question, not exactly the way you did, but this chapter financing has always been with SPJ. SPJ has, best practices. They've had this. I've been involved in. There's leadership institutes that I've been involved with. That was 10, 15 years ago. And what they do is chapters get together, student chapters get together and share advice with headquarters about fundraising. This is a great fundraiser. It worked on our campus. It might work on this. Is catalog, or I shouldn't say catalog because that makes it sound like it's. That information is stored at national headquarters and is available through your chapter liaison. So I would think about ways that you could sustain your chapter through this, so that you could understand that you necessarily relying on funding from national headquarters to augment some of your work. But again, thank you for offering that. I appreciate that very much, and let me know how it goes.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thanks for taking your time to talk to us, Kevin, and
Yeah, not a problem. Happy to do it.
yeah,
Best of luck. Enjoy your conference.
yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Actually, no, just a clear bell game. It spans pretty far.
Our next program will start at 2 o'clock. So, so feel free to mingle, stretch your legs, whatever. That too. Have another sandwich. Plenty of food.
I usually would.
I'm on board for AHA Seattle.